What is up, beautiful Dynasty Leaguers? Welcome back to the Dynasty Dynamic. I'm your host, Max Cascons, joined as always by the Al Bundy of the online shoe world, a.k.a. the Run DMC, a.k.a. Mr. Dan McAuliffe. Dan, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing well, Max. As you mentioned there, I work at a athletic footwear startup, and it's been really fun, but really busy at the same time. So definitely kind of itching to get some content out here. But I think we'll also be covering some other ways that we're going to be looking to get some content out to the masses in the near future. Isn't that right?
That is right. So we, first of all, we want more reviews. The more reviews, the better. We want to know what you guys like about the show. We want to know what you hate about the show. But we got a review from Mr. Charles Aldis a couple weeks ago. It was a pretty short review. It just said, the content is rock solid. My only complaint is that they only do a show every 2 to 3 weeks. Come on, guys. And
Preach.
Dan, he didn't say "come on, guys" in all caps, but I could kind of feel it.
You kind of knew. You knew what he was getting at there. No, that's fair. Sometimes you can sense that type of thing.
Yeah. So, I just want to make an announcement. We're in the middle of figuring this out, but we are going to do our best to get to a weekly cadence. As Dan alluded, he's a very busy person. So I have talked to him, we're going to try to test out some other show formats. We got our buddy, the Dynasty Moose, posting polls. So I don't know if we're going to get him to jump on, review some of those. We're going to figure it out. But the bottom line is you guys are going to get more content and you're going to get it very soon.
Exactly. Things move at a fast pace. We got to keep up with everything there. So it'll be fun to make sure that we're getting over to your podcast apps on a more frequent basis now.
And keep the reviews coming. I only find the ones on Apple. If they're on Spotify, I don't know where to find them. And
spoiler, they don't exist, so don't worry about those ones there.
That's a problem. I'm going to have to talk to Spotify about that.
Right? They do.
And then on the Google side, for our Google listeners, I have nothing against the Android platform. Just don't currently own any devices. I was once an Android truther. I don't know where to find those. So I'm going to have to find those and make sure that we're giving everybody the respect they deserve, but keep the reviews coming.
No, agreed. They're the best way for us to kind of gauge what we should continue to do, start doing, stop doing, etc. For all the content here. So really appreciate getting those in.
All right, Mr. Bundy. So we don't need to recap your tailback career at Polk High School, and that's one touchdown game you had. We got a short show list tonight. Let's jump right into it with the Golden Boy, the 101 from last year. Had his season cut a little bit shorter than I think we wanted to. Why don't you kick things off and talk to me about Joe Burrow?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's a name that's starting to crop up a little bit, simply because he has maybe been off people's minds for a little bit since he got injured, right? I mean, he was on a fantastic pace. We'll actually kind of go over some of those numbers there. But with the recent addition of Jamar Chase, you have people kind of looking his way again, being like, well, we really liked him when he had Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins and A.J. Green. Trade A.J. Green now for Jamar Chase, one of the most coveted wide receiver prospects of this class. He's starting to come back up as a name where it's, oh man, especially when it comes to like leagues like Superflex, let's kind of dig in a little bit more on Joe Burrow. So, I mean, as a history recap, he really didn't do much of anything his first 3 years in the NCAA, right? Then he was pretty decent in his fourth year, and then skyrockets to glory in his fifth year, and he becomes this kind of household name leading up to the draft 2 drafts ago. When it came to his play on the field for this year, he showed awesome accuracy. He was number 9 in accuracy rating and 11th in clean pocket completion percentage for Player Profiler. So to be able to do that as a rookie, again, I think we need to, in most cases, temper expectations for a rookie who's coming in. But of course, you knew no one was really starting other than Joe Burrow. He was going to be getting that shot immediately. So you needed to kind of see him step up pretty quickly, and for him to be able to do that is pretty crazy. And in fact, when you start to look at some of the numbers he was putting up, he was on pace for breaking rookie records for passing yards before he went down. Like it's stinks because we don't get to actually tell that story, right? And pacing, I'm always a little against putting those narratives together too much because, of course, anything can happen throughout the season. But to see that he was doing that well is pretty impressive. And I'm also going to note that he had 5 games over 300 passing yards. Like, that's pretty impressive for a rookie coming in. However, I mean, if we're going to kind of point out his good sides, we also got to point out some of the areas where he struggled. And of course, he didn't push the ball downfield that much. And anytime that he did, AJ Green wasn't catching the ball. So it was kind of really hard to succeed with those true kind of long bombs. And the team didn't utilize play action very much. Burrow was 30th in play action going in through last season there. So definitely something that you'd want to see if you want to see him become just a true versatile quarterback, that he's has that opportunity to be able to do that. But to return back to kind of the conversation at hand, he has absolutely stellar weapons going into the season with the addition of Chase. The biggest thing that I think we'd all kind of say is, okay, well, why did he have his struggles last year, and why was he running all over the field? It was because of his offensive line, right? So I think the weapons, in my opinion, I mean, I think the Bengals are top 5 in wide receiver weapons going into the season in terms of just comparison to some of the other teams that are there. I'm just really worried about his kind of offensive line of protection. I know they've got a couple guys returning that are going to be able to kind of like shift around. It's actually probably why they looked at someone like Penei Sewell and said, you know what? No, we're good. We're going to take Chase. But it is going to be something in the back of a lot of people's minds when they're looking at, yeah, you had the addition of Chase, but you didn't have that addition at offensive line. So Max, kind of what are your thoughts on Joe Burrow kind of going into the season? Is he someone that you're targeting, or someone that you're still a little apprehensive coming off an injury like he did?
Yeah, the injury is interesting. I was never a big Joe Burrow believer in the first place, personally. And I say that, we often refer to these things vaguely, but that means, in terms of cost, right? He was going 101 in a lot of Superflex drafts, sure, right? And I think people's memories tend to be short. Prior to that, like you said, otherworldly season, the greatest college offense we've ever seen and may ever see. Justin Herbert was the guy talked about as the top quarterback in that class. So it really was interesting to see 1 year, as you said perfectly before, like, did not do a lot early in his career. Breakout age is always an interesting thing to look at for quarterbacks and when they make their mark on an offense. So I had my doubts coming in because I was like, is he a 1 year wonder? Like how, was it the scheme? Then you look at the talent, right? You look at Jamar Chase, you look at Justin Jefferson, you look at CEH. I mean, we both have professed some love for Terrace Marshall on the show, it's like, okay, what was the chicken and the egg? Like, how did this work? Seeing what he did last year, with a pretty terrible offensive line, like you said, number 24 O-line ranking according to Pro Football Focus. They have made some improvements. I hated seeing them pass up on Penei Sewell. Yeah. I love Jamar Chase. I think Sewell is like one of those cornerstone offensive linemen that you can build a franchise around for a decade.
Agreed.
From a pure team building perspective, wasn't a fan of the move, but there's a guy we haven't even mentioned here, which is Joe Mixon, right?
Yeah.
And leaning on your running back can always help. Like you said, they didn't use play action. Let's get them using play action, right? They were already a very pass-happy team. Let's use some play action, help Burrow get things under control, give him those clean pockets that he excelled in. Sure. And I think he'll probably wind up changing my mind on him, right? Going from a guy that's like, all right, let's see it again, Joe, to somebody that's like, I can really see how this starts to come together. So definitely someone that, if you have the chance to buy on the cheap because someone still isn't sure about it, obviously hard to acquire young starting quarterbacks, especially in Superflex. But he's a guy I'm definitely more comfortable pushing the button on now or trading for now than I was 6-8, months ago.
Totally fair. Yeah. And I think that's the thing. I mean, because as you said, you have the opportunity to have them kind of prove you wrong and make you more interested in them after this coming season. The only thing that's going to come along with that is a much heftier price tag. So I think with some of the things that we see, the trends that he has, you mentioned like that all-star cast that he had when he was playing in college, he's got one again. So he's proven when he's given that type of talent to surround him that he's able to make something happen. And you just kind of have to go under the pretense of, if he's done it before in college and now he has this again, investing in him now when his price is cheapest, because I have a real good feeling that it's going to be on the rise even in the very early part of next season.
So speaking of players that had some hefty price tags once upon a time, let's flip over to the running backs and talk a little bit about Miles Sanders.
Yeah.
So Miles Sanders is someone that I think has kind of slowly fallen down draft boards, and it's kind of interesting to look at why, right? So they added Kenny Gainwell in the draft, monster pass catcher out of Memphis, clearly a stud there, and he's got some other good role players on the roster, but for all intents and purposes, like Miles Sanders is still the bell cow of that team. And to do a quick rewind for, some of those not as familiar with Miles Sanders' background, he was kind of a one-year wonder at Penn State, but for a different reason. He was buried on the depth chart behind a guy that you might have heard of named Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I hear he's pretty good.
Yeah, really, he only had 300, or he didn't even have 300 career carries at Penn State over 3 years. Long story short, once Saquon Barkley leads, Miles Sanders blows up. I think he has like 1,200 yards, catches a bunch of passes, like really shows that he can be a workhorse in the NFL, so much so that he became an early declare. Like people said, 1 year, that's all we need to see. You raise your hand for the NFL. And oh, by the way, the Eagles are going to make you a top pick. So, 2019 season, his rookie year, starts off slow, but still manages to get over 800 rushing yards and over 500 receiving yards, playing only 53.7% of snaps. So it was one of those things where efficiency was the name of the game for Miles Sanders, and all of a sudden he was a second round pick in startups the next year. This past year comes back a little, right? He was somebody who... He was very tough. We obviously frame things up in terms of dynasty here, but from a redraft perspective, a strategy I always employ in the early rounds is like, if somebody's injured either in training camp or coming out of training camp, like they're not someone I'm investing an early round pick in, right? So Sanders picked up that injury, and I was already like, that is not good for him going into the season, and still managed to be number 8 in yards per touch and number 10 in yards created per touch. So still showing that efficiency that made him that second round pick darling in startups based on the 2019 season. It's so interesting to me. Like I said, people's minds are short. They forget, what Sanders has been able to do given every opportunity to be a workhorse when healthy. He's somebody that I'm drafting. He's somebody that I'm trying to acquire. What are your thoughts on Miles Sanders?
Yeah, honestly, I'm looking to do the exact same because I think this is probably the lowest his kind of value could be right now. I think he's burned people in quotes enough that they're starting to kind of look at potentially offloading him for whatever they can get. And at that point, I'm definitely looking to buy because I think there's a couple things that the injury not being as big of a concern. He seems like he's definitely getting over that. Something to monitor as you go into the season. But Doug Peterson just being notorious for using more of an RBBC as a running back by committee. I think it's something that's always kind of lingered in the back of people's minds. He is now not there. So he can't hurt Miles Sanders in that regard anymore. And the last thing is like you see this wave of guys who are joining up with the Eagles as running backs as well, right? We have Kenny Gainwell. I think Jordan Howard is back in town. We saw Kerryon Johnson also join up there. So
former Dan favorite, Jordan Howard.
Pour one out if we're going to talk about another guy who near and dear to my heart at one point. So all those guys come back, and it's scaring people away. They're not going to keep 7 running backs on the team when cutdowns happen. They're doing this because they have an inkling that they certainly want to have someone to back up Miles Sanders, because at that point you have to invest because he has been injured. That a team has to prepare for something like that. But I still believe they see him as that lead guy, and they're going to do tryouts for pretty much any of the Boston Scott, Kerryon Johnson, Jordan Howard, XYZ, whoever else comes afterwards to see who gets the second and third spot. Don't be scared by the quantity of guys that they have on the team right now, because it's not going to end up that way. So really just take a look at the quality of those guys. And if that continues to scare you off, half of these guys got cut from their teams. So I don't know why that's scaring you off so much. Again, sorry, Jordan Howard, but that ends up being the case. So long story short, I am very interested in sending out some feelers for Miles Sanders because, again, I think the upside there is immense. And the introduction and just kind of lightning in a bottle that can be Jalen Hurts going into this year could add some real dynamicism to the overall offense.
So let's stay with the running back position and talk about a player that you've loved for a long time. Maybe that Jordan Howard love is faded, but you've been a Ronald Jones guy ever since we started talking about him. So why don't you talk to me a little bit about Ronald Jones?
And maybe Ronald Jones is the new Jordan Howard, but I feel like there are a couple of reasons why he's not.
That's not a good way to start your pitch.
I know. I don't want to speak that into the world. And I think we're going to find out that this is what I wanted Jordan Howard to be. So let's talk about Ronald Jones. I mean, just in general, on an offense that is pretty darn electric, right? I mean, they just won the Super Bowl, where they're now becoming at least a part of that offense where you saw the Chiefs and it's like, oh man, I want a slice of that team. This is another one where they're just going to be performing well overall, and you want to see if you can pick up parts of it when you can get them at a reasonable price. So one thing in particular for Ronald Jones, he was the rookie draft. He was a former rookie draft darling. Definitely someone going into rookie drafts for his draft season. He was like, ooh, okay, definitely someone that was really interesting and someone that you wanted to be able to pick up in the earlier rounds. And he was the poster child for ZRRB drafts in 2020, right? He did not carry a hefty price tag, but he was someone that was perceived as a starting RB that you could pick up in the later rounds and be able to kind of see the dividends from that. And he was 11th in rushing yards despite playing just 48% of the snaps. Other accolades, he was 6th best in rushing grade from PFF in 2020. He was the 2nd best rusher in yards per attempt against 8-man boxes. That's ahead of Derrick Henry. And he was 3rd in yards after contact per attempt. And that was right after Nick Chubb and Derrick Henry. Like to be included with guys like that in the rushing stats category is very impressive in my mind. And I think that's something that he doesn't get enough credit for. The one thing that dings him right now is the passing game involvement, right? He ranked 30th among RBs in receptions and 39th in total receiving yards. So when you're talking about PPR, believe me, I get it. It's definitely one where you don't want to have a guy like that as your RB1 because you just know they're not going to get that extreme upside with catching a couple passes and bringing them in for touchdowns. But the guy is an absolute rushing monster when he's given the opportunity. So seeing what he's been able to do, like you now have a potential to invest so little in a guy who can give you Derrick Henry rushing like skills. He's not going to have that total volume, and that's why he's never going to be Derrick Henry, right? Because you got guys like Leonard Fournette and your rookie darling Keyshawn Vaughn there. We've also got Gio Bernard is another addition. So there's these
Bruce
guys
Arians loves Gio Bernard.
He does, and so that's something where I would continue to be wary of. But again, when you get to quote unquote crowded backfields like that, the price tag is suppressed because no one can guess. Everyone's having a hard time guessing who's going to be like the lead guy, right? And honestly, I think in terms of name value, Playoff Lenny in a lot of people's minds is potentially even the starter because he had a really good kind of very tail end of the season, but certainly playoffs itself, he performed very well. I still feel like they're going to want to continue to invest in this being a true dynasty, and I think they want to continue to see what they have in Ronald Jones because, yes, he had a couple issues here and there with the receiving. I think maybe a fumble or two as well, but to get a young RB really kind of primed up to be able to deliver over the course of the next 3 years, I think they're going to make that investment. And I really think you can get Ronald Jones on the cheap for someone who could return crazy upside, especially if they involve him just a little bit more in the passing game. So I'm all in on Ronald Jones as a great RB3 option if you can get him, or a Hail Mary kind of RB2 if you really go light in RBs in your draft per se.
Yeah, if you had told me a few years ago that 240-pound speed score savant Leonard Fournette would become the receiving back, and that 205-pound, this is when he was coming out of college, former track star Ronald Jones would be the grinder back, I'm not sure anybody would have believed you.
What a time to be alive.
It's very strange. It's been a weird backfield. I'm just going to leave you with this. Keyshawn Vaughn was a monster at Vanderbilt. So let's move on. Let's move on.
I'm not going to let you stop a conversation dropping that in like that. My goodness.
We are pacing for our first ever sub 30-minute show, Dan. So I have one more player that I want to talk about.
Let's do it.
I'll make it quick, and then we will go into everybody's favorite segment, Dan on the Hot Seat.
Ooh.
So let's talk about Mike Williams, right? And I just want, a quick answer. I'm going to set the stage for you. So let's rewind a few years. We got to go back a little while. So Mike Williams breaks out just prior to age 28 Clemson, misses his entire junior year with a neck injury, and then goes and declares after a monster 1,300-yard senior campaign. Goes 107. People forget, Mike Williams went that high. Goes 107 in the NFL draft to the Chargers. Does basically nothing. His entire rookie year, he was a little banged up, missing some training camp, does not open the season as a starter. Flash forward to 2018. Touchdown machine, but no yardage. 10 touchdowns, 664 receiving yards. Then we go to 2019, and he has the opposite problem. He gets all the yards and no touchdowns. Has a 1,000-yard receiving season on less than 50 catches, which is pretty ridiculous by itself, but only 2 touchdowns. Then we take a look at last year, playing with rookie superstar Justin Herbert. Mike Williams comes up with the middle of his prior 2 years, 756 yards, 5 touchdowns. He was number 47 in fantasy points per game in PPR leagues. Dan, what does the future hold for Mike Williams? Are you buying? Are you selling? Or are you just forgetting about him? What's going on here?
I am buying. I'm going to buy anyone that's going to be attached to someone like Justin Herbert, right? Like that's you want to be able to be attached to a stellar up and coming rookie quarterback like that. We just saw this Goldilocks situation, right? Too many touchdowns, too little yardage. Too much yardage, too little touchdowns. Now this right in the middle, everyone's got a bad taste in their mouth because it's actually not the best Goldilocks situation. It's not the perfect best of both worlds. It was kind of a little less of either. So
the worst of both.
The worst of both.
Continue to sell me.
Exactly. Which again, the suppression of his value is there. And that's why I'd be buying at this point, because if he plays a full 16 games, which honestly is the biggest question mark for me with Mike Williams, then I think the sky is the limit. I think it's his injuries that keep him from succeeding at his best because he plays so physical. So he, being the high upside guy that he is, with knowing that you have a quarterback who's just going to throw bombs, if you can get him, there's going to be plenty of people who have held on to him for 4 years and are just looking to get out from under it. Probably like a second in rookie drafts would be able to get you someone like a Mike Williams, where you can trade a Kadarius Toney for a Mike Williams. I'm doing that all day because I think the upside is way higher for someone like Mike Williams as compared to Kadarius Toney, in my opinion.
I love it. I'm not even going to rebut that. I want to go into rapid fire.
Let's do it.
Everybody's favorite segment. And so we got about 7 minutes until we hit our 30-minute mark.
Woo. All right.
Start your engines.
We will keep this rapid fire.
Is Jalen Hurts a top 10 fantasy quarterback this year, Dan?
I think he has that upside, but I think he's going to be between QB 12 and QB 14. That's okay. My guess.
Is this the year we finally see what Joe Mixon is capable of?
Yes.
I'm
I
talking
think it is.
Top 5 running back potential.
It's because he's done top 10. He's done top 10, I think maybe twice, or at least top 12 multiple times. Yeah, I seriously, I want to see it. And he's got the weapons to pull a lot of those stack boxes that he saw off the top. I think we're going to see, I'm going to give him top 6. I think we're going to see RB6 or higher out of him this season.
I love it. Best sophomore QB season this year: Burrow, Herbert, or Tua?
Ooh, I'm going to go Burrow here. I'm going to go Burrow. I think Justin Herbert had a fantastic season. I think Tua is going to surprise. But just looking at the numbers that Burrow had for pace, technically if he stuck with that, I think he would have beaten up Herbert, which is just crazy. And now you just gave him one of the best wide receivers in this class. I'm going Burrow.
Arrows pointed up for Joe Burrow. Is Javonte Williams the week 1 starter?
Oh, I love that question. Oh, man. I don't believe he is the week 1 starter, but he will maybe aggressively. I'm going to say he has that job by week 3.
Okay. Odell Beckham renaissance here. Is it going to happen?
Oh, yes. I really do. I really do think so. People don't look at what he did last year and give him enough credit. When you actually got it over to him and you didn't have Baker forcing him the ball, he was lighting it up, man. So I really do believe that he's going to have a good year.
This next question, I originally had it as can instead of will, so just keep that in mind.
All right.
Will CeeDee Lamb lead the Cowboys in receiving this year?
Yes. Yeah. I think so for sure. In fairness, let me just ask this question. Total receptions or receiving yards?
Let's go receiving yards.
All right. Receiving yards, yes. I think he's going to do it. I think he's going to be really close with Cooper in receptions, but receiving yards, he's going to do it.
Is Adam Troutman the real deal?
Ooh, interesting.
Little curveball before the two fastballs come out.
All right. Is he the real deal? I think I like the player, but I think if anything, if he succeeds this year, it's going to be off of volume, because the Saints really badly wanted to get a wide receiver too. They didn't. And I think they're going to kind of force him more targets than he would have gotten there. So I think he's going to succeed on volume, but I don't think you're going to see the play itself and be like, oh my God, he's a next level.
R.I.P. Traquan Smith. All right, buddy. Calvin Ridley. Is he a top 6 wide receiver this year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think he is. It's hard because everyone's going to be talking about, is he the Juju of this year? You have a stud leaving and leaving him to be the new alpha. I believe there's a difference between Ridley's ability to play outside as an alpha as compared to Juju, who's always been a slot. So I say yes. I think he's going to be top 6.
You probably didn't have time to realize it because you're in rapid fire mode, but it all led to this. Is Kyle Pitts a top 6 tight end this year?
Ooh. Yeah. In top 6, and here's the reason why. Because it's pretty darn easy to be even tight end 4. What do we get? Robert Tonyan? Tight end 4, tight end 3, somewhere around there.
Sounds about right. Logan Thomas. 3 last year in a lot of
scoring. Oh my gosh, you look at the amount of routes run by Logan Thomas, and just you can certainly start to see that it's volume and being on the field that's going to make you a tight end 4, tight end 5, tight end 6. I don't think anyone else is going to see the volume that he's going to after, of course, like the big 3 tight ends. He's got to be. And if he isn't, buy him next year, because people are going to be freaked out that he wasn't tight end 1 for some reason.
That's the end of the show, buddy. That's all I can do.
Woo,
so
man.
Great job on the rapid fire. We are under 30 minutes right now, so I'm going to keep it short. To recap, we got a bunch of content we're going to queue up. We're going to get you guys more content. Please keep giving us the reviews. We're going to get you more content, whether Dan's here in spirit or on the mics. We will get you more content.
I love it.
And got some more guests queued up, so we're going to have some more voices on the Dynasty Dynamic. Dan, anything to add before we close out the show?
No, that's good. We're excited to kind of start delivering on a more frequent cadence there. So again, we only continue to learn about what you guys like or don't like by giving us the reviews there. So sincerely appreciate them. When you're able to do it, it means a lot to us. But otherwise, looking forward to next time.
All right. Well, getting out of here for today, this is the Dynasty Dynamic. You stay classy, Dynasty Leaguers.
Thanks for tuning in.